This meeting is being recorded.
Okay, I think we can take it. It's being recorded. So welcome to Eric. Delighted he's agreed to sit in the chair. And I want to start by asking, well, there are a few things, and then I'll hand over to Eric for his biography. One is a blog called Erical, and I wondered if you could just tell us a bit about, about its beginnings and etc.
Yeah, I mean, the Erical's been going for literally just a decade now. I started it for two reasons, I suppose. One was that I realized that I was never going to write the autobiography that we all think we're going to write at some stage in one's life. And the blog was the zeitgeist of the time. And I thought and the second thing was I'd be interested to see, I've always been very interested in the internet. I was an early adopter. So the two came together, and I decided to start a blog and see where it took me. I had three motives, or three bits of the agenda. One was I wanted to leave something which possibly my children one day might look at, which would perhaps give a flavor of the sorts of things that I was engaged with, or I am engaged with. Secondly, I didn't want to write a blog, become a hostage to the blog, so it was always going to be an occasional sort of organ, so to speak. And the last thing was I didn't at the time think it was going to be more sort of autobiographical, as I said, and I was not going to get involved in the contentious area of politics, even though I'm very interested in politics. But I couldn't contain myself, and in the end, it's been a lot more political than I ever intended it to be. So anyway, the blog's gone now for 10 years.
Is it interactive? Do people respond to it?
Yeah, I get some response. It's these days. I think the hardcore readership is email based because they subscribe to the email. But there is an unknown readership, so to speak, of the website. Most probably, I'd say a couple hundred people follow it.
Really, that sounds terrific. Do you ever get abuse?
Yes, yes, I do. Especially as I've taken some unpopular positions.
Okay.
At times.
We won't ask you what, unless you're a volunteer. But
no, I won't go there because I'll probably lose what some of the 13 nice people who are here at the moment think I don't want to. I don't want to hear any more of that claptrap.
Okay, so we'll leave you with lots of goodwill around you here. Now, I looked at the excerpt you showed me, and I noted that in 2022, you're attempting to raise £2,022 for cancer research, and so far you've raised 1,513. Including on what sounds like a rather treacherous trip to Skye with your bike.
Well, I didn't get as much riding up there, but this actually started last year when I set myself a target of doing 2,021 miles in 2021, and that at that time it was very much also motivated by not letting lockdown sort of beat me, so to speak, and I wanted to get out and do things. But I miscalculated. I kept on thinking I was just a few big rides away from making my target, and by the time I got to November, I was clearly not going to make the target. So I reset, as they say, and reset for 2022 miles in 2022 to raise £22. The money from the first year being rolled over, so nobody who gave lost out, so to speak. And this year it's going a lot better, even though I've managed to crack a rib and have COVID and had lost a couple of months out of the schedule. But
you've only got £509 to go.
£509 to go and about 600 and something miles. So
Okay.
it's going okay. Fingers crossed, steer clear of COVID, not breaking more bones, should be okay. And being part of the Hampstead Garden Suburb U3A cycling group means that I get in 20 miles every other week. So that's very helpful. And yeah, that's good.
Just mention while we're on air, as it were, that you've got a Just Giving page, Eric Wilton. Yes, Eric 2022 in 2022. I had a quick look at your page on Just Giving. So if anybody listening wants to support Eric, that's the best way to do it. Is that right?
That would be wonderful. Not necessary, but thank you very much if you do.
Okay. Right. So I wanted to ask you about the two groups that you lead. While we're on cycling talk, let's talk about the cycling group, because you started that, didn't you?
Well, I was one of the people who replied to your questionnaire, the trustees' questionnaire about possible groups, and several people said cycling, including myself. And I actually, as it happens, it's actually more led by Terry than myself. I do the admin, and Terry is our fearless leader in organising the rides. And yeah, it started. Philip, what was it? May we started, was it? I think it was May. And we've got a nice group. We went out with 9 riders last week, and one of the great features of U3A Hampstead Garden Suburbs cycling is that we have dogs being carried along in baskets at the front of 2 of our riders. So it's last week it was 10 sentients, of which 9 were human, cycling, and it's nice. We go at a very reasonable pace. We try to go out for about 2 hours and have a coffee stop as well. And for those people who are not yet ready to do, say, 20 miles, we've just started a Back to the Saddle group every other Tuesday, so that hopefully we can get people used to. Most of the people have cycled, so the people who haven't yet got back on the saddle, so to speak, we hope to go for shorter rides with them and help them move along. So
is it every week one group or the other?
It is every week one group or the other. The only difference is that if you want to join the main group, which is going out tomorrow, we'll meet every 2 weeks from St Jude's, and that goes come what may. But Back to the Saddle is basically if people say they're going to turn up, so it needs an RSVP.
Right. Well, it sounds terrific. You must be very pleased.
Yeah, it's great fun. It's nice.
One of your supporters, who I only know as Philip, who is nodding and waving and thumbs upping enthusiastically. So I don't know if Philip is a Back to the Saddler or an original.
No, absolutely not. Philip has done what's called an end-to-end. He's done it twice, in fact. So he's cycled from Land's End to John O'Groats.
Oh my God.
And so he's a serious cyclist, is Philip.
Well done, Philip. Lovely. The other group I know very well, because I'm a member of it, is the monthly book group on a Friday morning, which I think you took over from Daphne, didn't you?
Yes. Very sad when Jack died, and Daphne decided not to carry on with it. Again, I found myself putting my hand up. I was a very recent joiner of that group, and felt that I was the least qualified to take over from her, but nobody else volunteered. So I found myself basically leading that group, and that's very enjoyable. It's every Friday morning. Oh, sorry, it's the fourth Friday of every month at 9:30 on Friday morning, and we've been reading. We've kind of branched out a bit. It originally started with the 100 modern Penguin classics, but now we basically take it in turn to pick a book. And we've done, as you know, some quite interesting books. And the last one we read was it your recommendation, the Ethel Rosenberg?
Ethel Rosenberg. And
yes.
Yes, and Jeans is this week. Is this coming? is coming up next.
Yes, Good Housekeeping
Behaviour.
by Molly.
Good
Molly
behaviour.
Keating. Good Behaviour, that's it.
Anyway, I think it's very, very well run and very enjoyable. So anybody who wants interested in a Friday morning book group should get in touch. And, you know, now let's just have some biographies. So where did you grow up, and tell us a bit about your family background, which I know is very interesting.
I was born in 1949, 73 years old. The family home that I was born into was in Aberdare Gardens, West Hampstead, with my mother and father, my mother Herta and my father Kurt. Both of them had basically been born in Vienna and lived in families there of very different circumstances. My mother's family was, I mean, they were both very different about how they related to terrible goings on that they had to live through. But my mother really didn't tell me too much about, and it kind of came out in dribs and drabs. But I know that her father worked for the Postal Service. I know that her natural mother died when my mother was born in 1918, and she died in early 1920. And her natural mother died of a tooth extraction, would you believe? They, those days, didn't have the antibiotics available. So she had an elder sister, Liesl, and my understanding is that Liesl more or less acted as a surrogate mother for a long while in my mother's life. Her father remarried, and there was a half brother, Paul, was born. And I know also that the family was very involved in left politics. Her sister was very much involved with the Austrian labor unrest in the early 1930s, to such an extent that her partner, who wasn't Austrian, I imagine, was thrown out of the country, and she went with him to Russia, would you believe, and then to the Spanish Civil War, and then fought with the French resistance.
Did you know her?
Yes, she lived till 1960, and I met her in both Paris and London. She remarried. She married. I don't know what happened to, whether it actually was a marriage or what happened to the man that she was involved with. And unfortunately, my mother's father, her brother, and her stepmother were taken away to the camps and perished. My mother was very fortunate in basically being able to get out of the country via, it seemed to be some sort of kinder transport, even though she was a little bit old for a kinder transport, and she ended up in Brussels, where very fortunately she was expelled, and she found her way to London, where she worked as an au pair, I think in Luton. And she met my father. My father's family, on the other hand, was clearly a sort of a wealthier family. They weren't quite the Esterhazy. But Esterhazy, who was it, from the hair with the amber eyes?
Yes.
Was it Esterhazy? It was well. But they were very well off. They owned a silver plating business which had manufacturing in Vienna and in Mariabor. And by all accounts, there was an elder sister, elder brother, my father, and a younger brother. By all accounts, they led very good lives, quite sort of, involved in sort of basically in social entertainment and stuff like that. My father, I think, was the more serious, or I think he was. I'm sure he was. He became more involved in the business, and very fortunately, when the Anschluss happened, my father found himself, he was at the Mariabor manufacturing site, and he sort of single-handedly seemed to manage to get everybody out of the country. My grandparents ended up in walking over the Alps and to Switzerland, eventually found their way to England. My uncle via Italy came to England. The younger brother went with the grandparents and came over. And the only person, unfortunately, who made the wrong decision was made by her or for her. She stayed in Mariupol thinking she was safe, which was Sophie. But eventually, for some reason, she found herself in Hungary, and she was caught up in 1944 by the gatherings that took place in Hungary in 1944, and she was also perished in the camps. And so my grandparents were alive when I was born in London. I will show you a picture of them later. And the family settled here, and Kurti, who was the son of Sophie, who perished in Hungary, he had a very fortunate escape in that he wasn't there when the Germans came, or might have been Hungarians, and took Sophie and her husband away. And he found a note saying, "Go to your childminder," and the childminder took care of him as if he was her own. And after the war, they managed to contact him, and he was brought to London. By that stage, he was close to 17, 18 years old. And the youngest brother in my father's family fought for the RAF. He was of that age. So it's and that's where the name Wilton came from. Incidentally, he was the family name was Wolkenstein. In fact, my mother's name was Kessler, and my father's family was called Wolkenstein. And before Gerhard, as Jerry Wilton, as he became known, flew off for his first sortie, they said, "Well, Wolkenstein, we don't think this name's a particularly clever name to be flying over Germany with the way you look and all that sort of stuff. Why don't you pick a name?" And the squadron, he was a rear gunner in a bomber squadron, was based in Wilton. And in Wiltshire. So he took the name Wilton. It started with W, and for some reason it stuck. He was shot down. He was shot down in Germany in 1944 and spent the last year undetected as a Jew in a prisoner of war camp. So that's.
Was your childhood in a way overshadowed by these very dark?
Not at the conscious level. I must say that I don't think that was the case. I think my father in particular, my mother as well, obviously, were absolutely determined that they'd gone through what they'd gone through and come to London and England to not to have to, to provide their children. My sister was born in 1955, Susan, and basically it was very much, in fact, it was in fact almost over sort of emphasized that we were expected. They'd gone through the war. And they wanted us to take very full advantage of the fact that they were now British, and in my case, went to Haberdashers. In Susie's case, she went to Camden High School, and the expectation level was very high that we should, we should enjoy all the benefits. And yes, of course, it was. I didn't have a sense though that my parents were. My father certainly not. Were sort of. They were obviously emotionally affected, but I wouldn't say emotionally wounded. My mother, I later found out that perhaps she was emotionally wounded by events, but it certainly wasn't apparent to me when I was growing up in West Hampstead.
So you were in a way quite liberated from their history. You were free to enjoy growing up in England. Yes,
absolutely. The family joined the Belsize Square Synagogue, which was the refugee synagogue. So I spent a lot of time, and obviously the Holocaust is sort of part of the DNA of that congregation. So it's very much part of that. And I was bar mitzvahed at that synagogue. But I went. I took the 11 plus. Was fortunate enough to get a result to go to Haberdashers, and generally, I mean, I think I've always, to this day, very much thought of myself as being British. a British person who has a Jewish faith.
Were your parents Orthodox?
No, on the contrary, very, very liberal in it. They were also very liberal in their attitudes. I mean, I find it strange, but it's certainly true that come something like 1952, 53, they went on holiday back to Austria. It was they had a slightly schizophrenic approach to the whole thing. They loved going back to their country, but they also kind of were also very sort of conscious of that they were traveling amongst people who had thrown them out.
Hmm. And so after haberdashers, what next for you?
Well, I was at school. I was at haberdashers, being very much sort of an academic-oriented school. I wasn't regarded as one of the top echelons academically of that school. I was very active sporting. I was a good runner. I ran county level cross country, and I was so. I really didn't expect to get particularly good A-level results, and when I did, it almost came as a last-minute thought to go to university, and I had actually arranged to go for a year to the United States as part of the American Field Service. I got an American Field Service scholarship to live with an American family in Cuyahoga Falls, Ohio, and I arranged my year during my year in Ohio. I arranged my university place, which was at Sussex University, to take international relations. I had this mistaken idea that I wanted to work for the Foreign Office, it only transpired when I actually tried to get work with the Foreign Office 3 years later at university. The fact that I didn't have British-born parents was actually something which was meant that I couldn't have the sort of job that I wanted to have with the Foreign Office.
Really? Gosh, that's an eye-opener, isn't it?
It was. And at Sussex University, I met two of the people here who are listening in. John, who I met in my first year, who I went on to flat with and then share student digs. That's John Helfett, and Richard, of course, who I met at Sussex University as well. And my involvement with Hampstead Garden Suburb U3A very much is through Richard, because before I joined any U3A, I joined the only U3A at the time that I joined, because his Shakespeare group was becoming very well known around certain circles, and I'd by that stage taken a diploma at English Literature on retirement at City, and I wanted to do some more Shakespeare. So that's how I found myself.
We owe Richard a great thank you for.
I certainly do, and I owe it to him for the marvelous course he runs, or sessions he runs on.
Yeah, I would say.
Eric, I hesitate to interrupt, but you met me as well in our first year. Stephen, I'm on as well.
Oh, I can't see. I'm terribly sorry. You're off screen, Stephen.
No. Anyway, I just.
So you're Sue. You're Sue. Sorry.
Yeah,
You're the boy called Sue, who's really Stephen.
Right, exactly. I couldn't.
And Stephen Conn, who rescued me from the most atrocious digs in the first few weeks of when I was at Sussex University. As I told you, I arranged my university course very late. He said, "You can't live here," and he dragged me into his very nice guest house, and we shared a room. And
a lovely meeting that was.
It was. So I have lifelong friends with us. Well, lifelong, certainly since university.
Terrific, and they're here to support you today. So
they've supported me for a long time. They're always there for me, which is great.
Wow. So what happened after uni, as you couldn't go into the Foreign Service?
Well, again, I was sort of a little bit of insight into certainly the character of my father. When I was doing basically learning my mitzvah, I announced that I wanted to become a rabbi, which was at that stage was considered to be a laughable choice of career, and that just passed. But then, almost as a sort of continuum of that, once I realised I couldn't work in the Foreign Office, I got myself onto the master's education course at Goldsmiths. And I was planning to be a teacher. And to say that my parents were very unhappy about this. They had it in their mind that teaching was not a profession where I was going to gain huge financial independence. And I remember my father saying, I haven't gone through what I've gone through so that you can become a teacher. And I held out and held out and held out. And in the end, it was unbearable and I gave up. And through a family connection, I spent 3 years on the London Stock Exchange training to be a dealer, which was great fun. I enjoyed it very much. And I suspect I would have stayed there had not the market been very soft in 1974. And I decided to, in fact, just to step back, before the year I graduated from Sussex, 71, through Stephen, who'd done this a year before, I spent the summer working for an organization called the American Leadership Study Groups, who took American high school students with their teachers on educational travel programs to Europe. And I went on 2 of those trips with them in 71. And so my idea in 1974 was that I would take a year off from the stock market and go back in a year's time. And I arranged to spend the summer working for ALSG, which I did. And then I was going to go to Israel, and I had an ulpan, which is a sort of a type of kibbutz arrangement. In fact, I was going to go to Golda Meir's kibbutz, Revivim. And I think there again, the hand of Stephen was to be found. He told the people at ALSG what I was doing and suggested that perhaps because they were looking for someone to go to the States to help them market the programs, sell the programs, that perhaps I could be persuaded to head west, not east or southeast. And that's what happened. They offered me a position in Worcester, Massachusetts in 1974 on the sales side. There were a few Englishmen over there. We were on the telephones after school was out, speaking to American high school teachers and talking about Europe. And the English voice obviously was something which helped the pre-nostalgia of the whole experience. And then that grew into a marketing position. And eventually I became marketing director of the company. And they would have wanted me to stay on, but I really didn't want to live in the United States, even though I'd gone there a little bit to get away from London and perhaps to grow up a bit away from my parents. And I came back in 79, and I, with my marketing experience in those days, was very much involved with direct mail and direct marketing. I found myself with a position with one of the leading advertising agencies in the UK, a branch of Collett Dickinson Pierce on Euston Road. And 79 to 85, I worked and sort of developed within that agency, and that section of the agency eventually bought itself out. And one of the sort of tipping points.
A management buyout. It
was a management buyout, but one of the tipping points of it was we won an account pretty much through my auspices, which was Acorn Computers, which was, I don't know whether any of you bumped into Acorn Computers, perhaps your children did. They were the company behind the BBC Micro and the BBC Micro in Schools program in the mid-80s. And I inherited the pitch for that account because nobody else knew anything about computers. I was the chap who dealt with computer tapes and mailing lists. So they threw me in. And so anyway, to cut a long story short, I managed to win the accounts, and then my life changed at the agency. That became my full-time occupation. Acorn Computers became an enormous account in the mid 1980s, and by 85 I was a board director and dealing with the Acorn Computers account. But again, I never saw myself as an agency suit, and so again, to the horror of my father in particular, who just couldn't understand it, I gave it up. I just gave it up and decided I was still single. I was at that stage 35, 36. And I decided to take the summer off, play a lot of tennis, enjoy myself and think about life, by which time I had moved into my own flat. I had enough money in the bank account. I decided to keep me going for a year, and if need be, I'd eat baked beans for a while. But then I was persuaded by another friend that I should turn my hand at being a freelance marketing consultant. So he set up a couple of projects for me via his clients. He was a lawyer, and that morphed into freelance marketing consultancy with a brand name Adjunct, but it was really just me. And I did that and worked for various people. I still had connections with Cambridge and Acorn Computers, and one of those connections was previous sort of in-house marketing manager, a very talented man named John Caswell. And then he and I got together in '88. We started our own strategic marketing company, creative company. And that did very well. There were 3 of us, and by 1993 there were 30 of us. And there again, I decided that I really didn't want to be selling, creative solutions. I wanted to do things more strategic. By which time I'd met Jane in 1987. I met Jane, in fact, unknowingly at the end of my career in 1985 in Aspect, as it was called then. Jane was was basically from New Zealand and was spending 2 years abroad working for the financial director. And when I went out freelance, I was in a very good relationship with the agency. They offered me an office which I could rent from them, plus suggested that perhaps I'd like to ask that very nice young lady who worked for John Robinson, the financial director, whether she would, in her extra time, do some secretarial work for me. And those were the days you had secretaries. We didn't do it ourselves on computers. I started working with Jane as my PA. We had some, sort of evenings out at pubs after work. We had a Christmas party, which was probably was quite a turning point in our relationship. And by '86, we were a couple. In '87, Christmas of '87, I went out to New Zealand because Jane's 2 years were up, and traveled to meet her family with no other reason except to meet them, say hello, and wish Jane well and safely home. And then come January '87, Christmas '86 when I went out there. January '87, I came home. It was cold, it was miserable. I was on my own in the flat, and I realized I'd made a terrible mistake. And so via a friend in Wellington, New Zealand, he arranged to put an advert in the paper for me on Valentine's Day. If you ever want to propose to somebody, you ever have a second time around, don't propose to anybody on Valentine's Day. Very bad idea. Anyway, he asked me, how much would you like to spend on your advert, Eric? So I said, 50 quid, do it. So he said, fine. So he puts an advert in the local paper in Tauranga. And I sit back on February the 14th, waiting to hear. I heard nothing on February the 14th at all, even though New Zealand was ahead of us time-wise. Eventually, I called up my friend and said, haven't heard anything. This has gone very wrong. Perhaps just could you confirm how wrong it's gone by giving Jane a call? So he called Jane up and said, have you read the local paper today? Jane hadn't, so she went and looked at it, and she kind of was expected to see a small ad, but 50 pounds bought half a page in the local.
Oh my goodness.
and she missed it. And she missed it. So there again, she had to be prompted. And eventually the half page was read with my proposal. And after, I can't remember how long it was, but a short while afterwards, I received a phone call on February the 15th accepting that proposal. So the advertising man in me was part of that proposal. The other funny side of it, I hope Jane doesn't mind me saying this, that the local radio station was, of course, very interested in the proposal to Jane from Eric that had appeared in the paper in such a large space, and started putting out, would Jane please let them know and Jane never did. So to this day, it's one of the great mysteries of Tauranga whether Jane and Eric actually got together. We did.
But they did very successfully.
So we got married on July 2nd, 87. And Sam was born in March 24th, 1990, and Gabriella February 23rd, 1992.
And it sounds like friendships have been so important in your life. I mean, you seem to inspire people, you know, with a lot of fondness for you through friendships.
Well, that's very kind of you to say. So my friends, and Simon here is another who's joined us. Simon Freeman, who is who I knew on and off, but I was introduced to in the early 1990s, or reintroduced to in 1990s by relative of Richard's, Anthony, and who thought that Simon had this brilliant idea that electronic information had to come into play in a big way in the pensions industry because of the complexity of information and the way things were handled and got together, set up prototype, persuaded the industry leaders, and then Thomson, the publishers, that this was something they should invest in. And so when in 1996, when getting close to launching the product, which is called Perspective, and the company was called Pendragon, Simon asked me whether I'd spend time with them as a consultant, helping launch the program. Which we did. When did we launch? Middle of 98, I think. Something like that. 97 was it? And it actually did very well to begin with. But Thomson, who were much more used to selling lower ticket items to the same sorts of industry, thought that we were not doing very well. And despite Simon and our best efforts to persuade them that they should stick with us, they decided that we had failed in their new business startup model, and they were going to abandon us. So Simon and I got together, and we again bought the company out from Thomson, and virtually from the moment we owned it ourselves, with the help of some investors, it was like a knife through butter. We just cut a swathe through the industry, and this product Perspective, which is now a complete mainstay of the pensions industry, did very well. I mean, it became so successful that come 2002, 2003, it was too valuable to keep to ourselves. You never know what's round the corner, technologically wise. So we sold it to another publishing company, and it was, from my point of view, it was a tremendous result, and I'm so very thankful to Pendragon and to Simon for involving me with Pendragon, because as a freelance marketing consultant, you know, sort of you earn a nice living, but you never have anything of equitable value, because the moment you stop working, your business is finished. Whereas with Pendragon, there was equity which was sold, and has certainly you know, been very helpful to me in my retirement. I missed out a little bit of the story. In 94, I left the design company I started with John, and went to live in New Zealand for the best part of a couple of years with the two young children. It seemed like a good time to try it out. Wasn't for me. Didn't get on with the country, and we came back in late 94, I think. And settled in the Muswell Hill area.
Right. I'm aware that we've got 20 minutes left, and that you have put together a PowerPoint presentation of photos. So I wonder if now is a good time to...
If you'd like, with the greatest of pleasure. So I've got to press share screen. So I'll first switch on share screen. First open the PowerPoint. Right. And well, now I've lost the share screen bit. So let's move this aside. Right. My grip of technology is struggling here. Right.
Is Nang, are you?
No, it's okay. It's just, I think it's me that's not, I think if I press this here, that's it. There we go.
There we go.
Okay.
So, and I need to find the PowerPoint bit here. See if I can move it up. It's lost at the bottom. Slideshow. Can I do it this way? Let's have a look. No, that's not going to work. Okay, you're just going to have to look at it. There should be a thing at the bottom here. I can
Go back to slideshow, Eric.
Go back to slideshow. Yeah. This one up here.
Yeah.
And play from
current slide.
Yeah, there you go. Thank you very much. Okay, and I need to go back.
There were two others that we've not got.
That's right. Am I going the wrong way? No, I'm going the wrong way. For some reason, it's going backwards. No, for some reason, I'm going. Sorry, I'm being very cack-handed at this. There must be. I'm going.
You can stop it and start again, Eric.
Okay.
And then it'll start from the beginning. And then you use either previous page or next page to advance the slides. You can press escape.
Escape.
Right. Okay. Right.
And then start from the beginning.
Right. There we go.
Play from start. That's it. If you click on play from start, that would take you right at the beginning.
Right. Okay. So that is the pictures. That's a picture of my grandmother, my maternal grandmother, with my mother's elder sister, Liesl. And I have no pictures of my mother with her actual mother. And can you see my cursor?
Yes.
Okay, so that's my mother here, and that's Liesl, taken when they were, I don't know, it looks like a 2-year-old to you, possibly. Okay. And that's a picture of my mother on the left, taken just before she left Austria in 1938. And on the right is a picture taken of her sometime during the war. And that's a picture of my grandmother. She's probably in her 20s there. Unbelievable. I mean, these are all pictures taken pre-1939 in Vienna. My grandfather, Bernard Wolkenstein, you can see is a man about town, looks the part. And my grandmother, who looks like a grandmother already in 1938 on the right. These are the earliest pictures I have of my father. There he is on his own, and there he is with a group of friends. And again, you can see that these are not people who are living life on a low financial rung. They are reasonably well off, with the Wolkensteins. And this I thought I'd show you because it's an interesting picture. This is a picture of my father at the famous Veslauwbad. The family was rich enough to have a summer home in Veslau outside Vienna, and he's wearing some swimming trunks with the Star of David on it. Now, not that anybody should think that this is anything to do with the famous yellow star that's got stitched on clothing. This was worn proudly because he was a member of the Hakoah Swimming Club, and this was their own emblem. And this kind of speaks very much how being Jewish was nothing that people were hiding from in Austria.
Fascinating photo, that.
I think it is. Yes, I think it's very interesting. That's the first picture I have of my parents together. It would have been taken somewhere about 1946, 1947. I don't know where that is, but that doesn't. I know they went to Nice in 1948. I think perhaps on their honeymoon. So it might have been taken on their honeymoon in Nice. That kind of looks like the Boulevard Anglaise in Nice. This is the very first picture of me. I love the picture as much for the background as anything else. It's so, this is obviously shortly after September the 1st, 1949. I remember those curtains, the standard lamp, the couch. You've got my father and mother, me, my grandparents. There is, standing behind my mother is the little boy Kurti, who by this stage had come out. He'd been through, I think now he was studying to be an optician. He never pursued that. He eventually went into the travel industry. And the gentleman on the right is my father's elder brother, Irvin, known to everybody as Uncle Benny. And that is his wife next to her, known to me as I know it's Tina, and to me as Auntie Tina. And I can't over egg how close that family unit. We met twice a week, Wednesday evenings and Sundays in the afternoons, either at our house or at Uncle Benny and Auntie Tina's, and that went on way into the 60s. So the family was very, very close together. This is me. I'm the item of toy is you can't give it a name these days, so I've got a toy with me, and that's me and my mother posing in some reading. These are all professionally taken. I don't know whether the picture of me was, but we had the photographers in, I remember, on a couple of occasions. And this is my sister Susie, shortly after she was born with my mother, and then as she grew up, she must have been sort of, again, 3 years old there. And this was the famous Polly photos that were taken in those days, you might remember. And that's a Polly photo strip of me and myself with my sister. And those are 3 pictures of me going through my teens. The one on my left, I don't know, is taken for my bar mitzvah. That was taken basically around the time I think it was just about time I arrived in the States, or shortly before that, so I was 18. And that is a picture of me graduating from my American high school, which was a symbolic graduate sort of graduation that they afforded their foreign exchange students. So that was a nice occasion. Moving on now, you've got me post in the 70s, working for ALSG. I think that was a picture taken down in Florida where I was having a holiday. And this picture of me is me as the madman in advertising industry, circa 1982. That's the wedding photograph, Jane and me. And these are the 2 children when they were babies, Sam on the left, Gabriella on the right. That's the family together on a family holiday. The kids will be in around sort of 10 or so. This is taken on top of the Gornergrat in Zermatt. And these are probably the proudest pictures of my life when my 2 children graduated. Sam from Oxford and Gabriella from Bournemouth University. Sam took Arc and Ant at Keble College, and Gabriella took, what's the course called, to give it precise, it's events management at Bournemouth University. And that's the closest pictures I have of them now. That's Gabriella with her partner, Peter. Gabriella works for Greenpeace, and Peter works on a sort of, he basically writes positioning papers and presents to government, and recently it's mainly on the issues relating to drugs, abuse thereof, etc. And Sam moved over to New Zealand in Christmas 2018. He basically was going to go over there for a year to spend 6 months traveling and then see if he could. By that time, he'd already started working on documentary filmmaking, and he worked for Swan in this country, and he worked on some quite good TV programs, and had moved over to Wellington after his 6-month traveling. Got a job with one of the leading documentary filmmaking companies there on their TV side. When COVID appeared, it made no sense whatsoever to come back to the UK, but he was very much into his job and life there. And the last time we saw him before, he's now over here with us for a couple of months, but before that we saw him was the Christmas before COVID. And in those 2 years, he's decided that he really likes living in New Zealand, and he loves the job, and there's certainly no short-term plans to come back to UK. If anything, he's likely to spend more time in New Zealand than anywhere else, possibly splitting his life between 6 months in New Zealand and 6 months possibly in the UK, possibly not. And finally, this is on my last birthday, Jane and I celebrating my birthday at the Ivy, in fact, was very good.
Very, very nice.
There you go.
Lovely. Thank you. Lovely photos.
Thank you very much.
So life seems to have been good for you.
Yes, I've been very fortunate. I've really, into every life a little bit of rain, but in my case, it's been the rain of this summer. It's mainly been bright, breezy.
The rain of sky, has it?
The rain of sky. That was basic. I had a bit of rain and sky, but otherwise, I've been very fortunate. I really, I've had I did well at school, well enough, graduated well enough from Sussex, never really had any anxiety about, following my nose in what I wanted to do career-wise. Got married late in life, sort of not late in life, but when I was married, I got married at age 38, which I think was a good thing, because I probably was on the emotional immaturity side of the scale for longer than I should have been, and have generally breezed through most of what I've done, and
Well, it's also a reflection of your very likable personality, I think.
Very kind. There are times where you might not find me so likable, but let's put it that way.
I'm just wondering, we've got about, 6 minutes left. If anybody wants to ask Eric any questions or disabuse me of the fact that I think he's likable. So can we open it up if anybody wants to unmute themselves? And Richard is.
Yes, thanks, Eric. Very, very interesting. It's a great deal I didn't know. I wondered if you could say something about coffee and computers that I don't know if you set it up or were involved.
Coffee and Computers was back in 2015. I stumbled into as a volunteer, as did Edgar, who is on the screen. We volunteered for, I don't think Edgar volunteered for the Highgate grant. It was a community project taking place in Jackson's Lane once a month. And it was basically set up to help Highgate residents of a certain age come to grips, which in their particular case were somewhat, in many cases, unwanted gifts from their children, iPads and phones and stuff like that. And there were half a dozen people there turning up every month, and I suggested to the two ladies who ran it that perhaps we should market it, because it was a tremendous idea, and it was very nice at all sorts of levels. So we decided to open up 2 other Highgate ventures. We partnered with Highgate School, where the students were the volunteers, and we also had a session at Highgate Society. So all of a sudden there were 3 Highgate groups, and they were well attended. Sometimes we had 20 or so people at some of these meetings, and somewhere along the line, Haringey Social Services heard about this and suggested that we might like to go to different areas of Haringey. The ladies in Highgate were horrified at this idea, and I, with their permission, branched out. And anyways, by the time we got to COVID, we had something that was 18, 19 sessions a month taking place around Haringey in some very different places. The library at Crouch End, not so different, but then in Wood Green and on Turnpike Lane, where we were meeting very different sorts of people, very much this sort of, what's his name? Is it Nathan Blake? I've forgotten his name. The kind of people who were really struggling with technology, but couldn't afford not to come to terms with it because they had to relate to now get their benefits through it. So it became a very different sort of organization by the time COVID had come around. Then when COVID came, it just exploded even further, in the sense that all of a sudden all the people who thought they might go through life without technology had to learn how to do it, so they could Zoom, get in touch. And in fact, for the first sort of couple of months, Coffee and Computers was very involved in actually putting people who were isolated in touch with help organizations to get medical and food help. So it just became something enormous, and it was absolutely it was beyond the control of the trustees that were involved with it. And the long and the short of it is that we decided that we had a quick look at setting up a charity with a full-time employee or two, and we decided much more practical was to basically hand the whole thing over to a funded community organization. And I'd done it for 6 years at that point. So Coffee and Computers carries on. It's in good hands, and I feel very good that that the project helped a lot of people over the years and is now almost stitched into the social services set up in Haringey.
Marvellous. Well done.
Thank you.
Okay, you're getting a clap from Philip. Anybody else want to say anything? No? Well, I hope you found this a lot less traumatic than you thought it would be, Eric.
Well, I was somewhat bemused that you'd asked me, and I did suggest to you I hoped you'd be more Parky than Paxman, and you have been. Thank you very much.
I think I've been very mild, don't you? I don't think there's much of Paxman about me.
No blood, no cuts.
Emily Maitlis and Prince Andrew. I think I've been rather, but you've been a delightful person to listen to.
Thank you.
Thank you very, very much.
Thank you for asking me, and I have enjoyed talking about myself, like most people do.
Well, it's been very enjoyable. And thank you also for the lovely photos that you've provided, which were absolutely terrific. So well done, Eric. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you all for coming and listening. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Eric.
Thank you, Eric.
Thanks.
Bye.
Take care.
Thank you, Eleanor.
Thank you, Eleanor.
My pleasure. Really, my
Bye.
Bye-bye.